The council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished metal and transparent aluminum, suspended in the void around Terminus Prime. 250 species had gathered here, their representatives seated in concentric circles that rose like an amphitheater toward the distant ceiling. At the center stood the speaking platform, a circular stage where delegates addressed the assembly. Captain Jiwon Park stood at the edge of the human delegation, her military uniform crisp and dark against the colorful attire of other species. She watched Ambassador Hyun Kim approach the platform, his silver hair catching the artificial light. This was the moment they had prepared for, but something felt wrong. The air itself seemed hostile. Hyun began speaking, his voice amplified across the vast space. Honored council members, we propose a solution to the Outer Rim disputes. Humanity will share our terraforming technology with all interested parties. The contested worlds can support multiple colonies if we work together. We can establish joint research stations and shared mining operations. This way, no species loses, and everyone gains. The human delegation had spent months preparing this proposal. It was fair, generous even. Yuna Lee, their chief scientist, had personally designed systems that would allow 5 different species to colonize the same region without conflict. The math was perfect. The logic was sound. But the council chamber remained silent. Thexnar rose from his seat. The reptilian delegate was old, his scales dulled by centuries of life. He represented the Saurian collective, one of the founding species of the council. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of ancient authority. The human delegation misunderstands their position, Thexnar said, his words deliberate and cold. You have been part of this council for merely 3 centuries. We have maintained peace for 10,000 years. Your species expands too quickly. You build weapons too readily. You claim to offer partnership, but we see only aggressive expansion. Jiwon felt her jaw tighten. She had fought in the border wars, had seen human colonies destroyed by raiders while the council debated protocols. Humanity had built strong defenses because they had to, because the council's peace did not extend to protecting newer members. Hyun remained calm on the platform. With respect, Councillor Thexnar, our expansion has been within approved boundaries. Our military exists solely for defense. We have never initiated conflict with any council species. We ask only for the same opportunities that were granted to species who came before us. Velmoth, the High Arbiter, clicked his mandibles together, the insectoid being served as the council's chairman, a position of administrative power. The human ambassador speaks technically correct words, Velmoth said. However, the spirit of council membership involves patience. Humanity wishes to reshape established territorial agreements that have existed for millennia. This demonstrates poor judgment. Yuna leaned close to Jiwon and whispered, They've already decided. This was theater. She was right. Jiwon could see it in the way other delegates avoided looking at the human section. The vote had been arranged before the session even began. Velmoth raised his foreleg. A motion has been proposed by the Saurian Collective, seconded by the Avian Commonwealth and the Crystalline Assembly. Human colonization rights will be limited to current holdings for a period of 50 standard years. Economic sanctions will be imposed on human trade vessels entering inter-council space. All human military vessels will be restricted to patrol within 2 sectors of human territory. The words fell like hammers. 50 years of frozen expansion would cripple human growth. The sanctions would destroy their economy. The military restrictions would leave their colonies vulnerable. This is a vote to strangle us, Jiwon said quietly. Hyun's face remained composed, but his hands gripped the edge of the platform. This motion is unjust. We have committed no crimes. We have violated no laws. You punish us for being different, for being young, for threatening your comfortable monopoly on galactic affairs. The motion is called to vote, Velmoth announced, ignoring Hyun's words. The chamber filled with light as delegates registered their choices. Holographic displays showed the results in real time. Green for support, red for opposition, blue for abstention. Green lights dominated the display. Final count, 47 in favor, 3 opposed, 12 abstentions. Only the Wayfarers and the Silicon Collective had voted with humanity. The abstentions were species too weak to risk taking sides. Hyun stood silent for a long moment, looking up at the thousands of alien faces surrounding him. Then he tapped his communication device. Admiral Choi, begin evacuation protocols. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Ambassador Hyun, Velmuth said. What is the meaning of this? Hyun turned to face the High Arbiter directly. We came to the Council seeking partnership. We offered innovation, resources, and friendship. We shared our technology, our knowledge, our culture. We asked only to be treated as equals. Instead, you have shown us that we will always be outsiders in your eyes, threats to be contained rather than colleagues to be respected. He stepped down from the platform and walked toward the human delegation. If you see us only as problems to be managed, then we have no place here. Humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council. Effective immediately, the chamber erupted. Delegates shouted, demanded explanations, called for reconsideration. But the human delegation was already moving. Jiwan led the way, her hand near her sidearm out of habit, though no violence would come. Not here, not yet. They walked through the corridors of the station in complete silence. Other species stepped aside, watching with confusion and concern. Some looked angry. Some looked worried. None tried to stop them. At the docking bay, human ships waited. Sleek destroyers and heavy cruisers, cargo vessels and diplomatic shuttles. They represented 300 years of human presence in Council space. All personnel accounted for, Do Hyun Choi reported. The Admiral was a mountain of a man, his face weathered by years of command. All assets secured. We're ready to depart, Hyun nodded. Take us home, Admiral. The ships powered up, their engines glowing blue in the darkness. One by one, they detached from the station and moved into formation. Then, as if choreographed, they turned away from Terminus Prime and jumped to faster-than-light travel. In the council chamber, Velmuth returned to his seat. The meeting had dissolved into chaos, with delegates arguing about what had just happened and what it meant. His private communication device chimed. An encrypted message, source unknown. He opened it. The text was simple, but it made his blood run cold. You've made a grave mistake. The humans weren't the threat. They were your shield. Velmuth looked at the empty space where the human delegation had stood, and for the first time in his long life, he felt afraid. 3 months had passed since humanity left the Council, and the galaxy was discovering what absence meant. Gixal stood in his office on the trade world of Merchant's Haven, staring at reports that made no sense. The avian minister had managed economic policy for 40 years, and he had never seen numbers like these. Trade routes that had functioned for centuries were collapsing. Profit margins had disappeared. Entire sectors faced shortages of basic goods. The problem was simple. Humans had been the connective tissue of galactic commerce. They transported goods between species that refused to deal with each other directly. They maintained trade stations in dangerous regions where other species would not go. They had taken the unglamorous, difficult work of keeping the galaxy's economy moving, and nobody had noticed until they stopped. Another 17 firms declared bankruptcy today, his assistant reported. The Valon Corporation is requesting emergency loans. The Crystal Syndicate has suspended all operations in the outer markets. Gixal ruffled his feathers in frustration. What about alternative shipping? The Saurians say their vessels are already at full capacity. The Crystallines claim their ships are not designed for long-haul freight. Everyone has excuses, Minister. The truth is that nobody wants to do what the humans did. On the agricultural world of Greenhold, farms were failing. Human irrigation systems had broken down and nobody knew how to fix them. Human fertilizer shipments had stopped, and crop yields had dropped by 60%. The local government had sent urgent requests to the Council for assistance, but help was slow in coming. Dr. Yuna Lee would have known how to fix it. She had designed those systems, had taught them to local farmers, had promised to support them, but she was gone, back in human space, and her knowledge had gone with her. In the medical stations throughout Council space, doctors struggled with equipment they no longer understood. Human diagnostic tools were far more advanced than anything else available, but they required regular updates and maintenance. Without human technicians, the machines were becoming useless. Governor Sora Kang stood on the observation deck of New Sol, the largest independent human colony. The station orbited a blue gas giant, its rings shimmering in the distance. She watched ships coming and going, all human vessels now. No council traffic. Mira, show me the sensor reports again, she said. The AI assistant projected holographic displays into the air, confirmed readings from 14 separate observation posts. Unidentified vessels massing in the region beyond the Veil Nebula. Energy signatures do not match any known council species. Fleet composition suggests military purpose, Hora frowned. Have we notified the Council? 3 formal reports sent via diplomatic channels. No response received. They're ignoring us because we're not members anymore. That assessment is correct, Governor. Commander Taemin Shin brought his patrol ship out of FTL at the edge of human territory. His mission was routine. Check the border markers, scan for pirates, report anything unusual. It was boring work but necessary. His sensor officer called out, "Commander, I'm picking up a distress beacon, bearing 273, distance 8 light minutes. Council ship? No, sir. It's coming from a planet. The signature matches the Viridian species." Taemin knew the Viridians. They were a peaceful species, farmers and artists with only a few small colonies. They had abstained from the vote against humanity. Set course. Maximum speed. The planet came into view and Taemin felt his stomach drop. The surface was burning. Entire continents were on fire. Debris orbited the world, the remains of orbital stations and defense platforms. Life signs? He asked, though he already knew the answer. Scanning. I'm getting one faint signal. Surface location, northern continent inside what looks like a bunker. They landed near the signal and found a Viridian female, barely alive, trapped in an emergency shelter. Her green skin was burned, her breathing shallow. Taemin's medic worked quickly, stabilizing her enough to speak. "What happened here?" Taemin asked gently. Her eyes focused on him with difficulty. "They came from beyond. Ships like nothing we had seen. They did not communicate. They did not demand surrender. They simply began destroying everything. We tried to fight, but our weapons did nothing. We sent distress calls to the Council, but nobody came." "Who were they?" "The old ones called them the Devourers. My grandmother told me stories, but I thought they were myths. She said they came from the dark spaces between stars, that they consumed everything living. The Council defeated them long ago, before my species even had spaceflight. But they returned. They came back and nobody was ready." She coughed and blood appeared on her lips. "Tell your people. Tell them the Devourers are real. Tell them to run." She died before they could get her to the ship's medical bay. Admiral Do-hyun Choi read the report in his office aboard the human flagship Indomitable. Commander Taemin had sent everything. Sensor logs, recordings, analysis of the weapons used against the Viridian world. It was all highly disturbing. He opened a secure channel to Earth. "I need to speak with Ambassador Hyun immediately." Hyun appeared on the screen within minutes. "Admiral, I received your preliminary report. How bad is it? Worse than we thought? I sent intelligence teams to search Council databases before we left. They found classified files that were never shared with us. The Vrax Imperium was a machine civilization that nearly destroyed the galaxy 10,000 years ago. The Elder Council species fought a war that lasted centuries. They won, barely, and pushed the Vrax back into dark space. Then they sealed all records of the war and never told newer species it had happened. Why would they hide something like that? Pride, maybe, or fear. If younger species knew how close the Council came to extinction, they might lose faith in the Council's power. But here's the critical part. The humans who analyzed those files believe the Vrax were never truly defeated. They were just pushed back and they've been rebuilding in the darkness all this time. Hyun was quiet for a moment. And now they've returned and the Council has no idea how to fight them because they forgot their own history. Exactly. The species that fought the Vrax are either extinct or so changed that they don't remember the war. The current Council has lived in peace for so long that they don't understand what's coming. How long do we have? Based on the attack pattern and the speed the Vrax are moving, I estimate they'll hit major Council worlds within 6 months. Maybe less if they accelerate. On Terminus Prime, Velmoth received reports from across Council space. Economic collapse, equipment failures, and now disturbing news from the Outer Rim. An entire species had gone silent. Scout ships sent to investigate had not returned. He called an emergency council session, but attendance was poor. Many species were dealing with their own problems and did not want to travel to Terminus Prime. Texnar was there, however. The old Saurian looked even more tired than usual. "Have you heard from the humans?" he asked Velmoth privately. "They do not respond to our communications. Can you blame them? We treated them with contempt and now we are suffering for it." Velmoth clicked his mandibles in distress. "I received another message. Anonymous. It said the Vrax have returned and that only the humans knew how to fight them." "The Vrax?" Thexnar's scales paled. "That's impossible. They were destroyed ages ago, so we believed. But what if we were wrong? In human space, General Jiwan Park looked at tactical displays showing Vrak's fleet movements. They were coming and they were strong. The question was whether humanity would stand alone, or whether the galaxy could be saved. 6 months after humanity's departure, the Vrak's Imperium revealed itself to the galaxy in fire and blood. The first major world to fall was Saurus Prime, homeworld of the Saurian Collective. The Vrak's fleet appeared without warning, dropping out of faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. 5,000 ships, all identical, all black as the void between stars. They did not send messages. They did not make demands. They simply began their work. Thexnar was on the surface when the attack began. He was in his garden, an ancient space filled with plants his ancestors had cultivated for 10,000 years. He was pruning a flowering vine when the sky turned red. The orbital defense platforms lasted 4 minutes. The planetary shield held for 7. Then the bombardment began. Thexnar ran to his ship, his old body protesting every step. Around him, his city was burning. Buildings that had stood for millennia crumbled like sand. People he had known all his life died in flames that fell from the sky. He made it to the spaceport and launched his personal vessel through a gap in the Vrak's attack pattern. Looking back, he saw his world dying. The oceans were boiling. The continents were cracking apart. Everything he had ever known was being erased. His communication system lit up with distress calls from across Saurus Prime. Then, one by one, the signals went silent. 3 weeks later, another world fell. Then another. The Vraks moved through Council space like a plague, and nothing could stop them. Captain Minji Ro watched the recordings from Saurus Prime in the Intelligence Center on New Sol. She had served in human military intelligence for 20 years, and she had never seen destruction on this scale. The Vraks did not just defeat their enemies, they erased them completely. Their tactics are perfect, she told General Jiwan Park. No wasted movement, no hesitation, no mistakes. They fight like a single organism, every ship coordinating perfectly with every other ship. It's beautiful and terrifying. Jiwan studied the displays. What are the Council's defensive capabilities? Minimal. They've had peace for so long that most species barely maintain military forces. The Saurians had the strongest fleet, and you saw what happened to them. The other species are even less prepared. And their strategy? Minji pulled up tactical maps. They're trying to form defensive lines, but they don't understand mobile warfare. They fight like it's still the old days, with static positions and formal engagements. The Vraks just flow around their defenses and strike where they're weakest. On Terminus Prime, Velmoth sat in the council chamber, with barely 50 delegates present. So many species had lost their homeworlds. So many representatives had died trying to defend their people. We must request aid, he said, his voice heavy with defeat. We must contact humanity. Thexanar, who had barely spoken since his escape from Saurus Prime, raised his head. They will not help us. Why would they? We cast them out. We insulted them. We made them enemies when they wanted to be friends. Because it is the right thing to do, Velmoth said. And because if we fall, humanity will face the Vraks alone eventually. They must know this. Then let me go, Thexanar said. Let me carry our message. I was the loudest voice against humanity. Let me be the one to beg for their forgiveness. On Earth, in the capital city of Geneva, Ambassador Hyun Kim sat in a secure conference room with the human government's leadership. President Elena Volkov, Admiral Do-hyun Choi, General Jiwan Park, and a dozen others filled the space. Thexanar is requesting an audience, Hyun reported. He comes alone, unarmed, with a message from what remains of the council. It's a trap, someone said. It's desperation, Jiwan corrected. I've reviewed the intelligence. The Vraks have destroyed 14 major worlds and countless smaller colonies. The council is facing extinction. President Volkov leaned forward. If we help them, what do we gain? They treated us like barbarians. They tried to strangle our growth. Some might say they deserve what's happening. No one deserves genocide, Hyun said quietly, not even those who wronged us. But if we save them now, another minister argued, they'll go back to the old ways. They'll forget this lesson as soon as the danger passes. We'll be their saviors today and their servants tomorrow. Jiwan stood. Then we make them understand. We don't rush to their rescue. We make them wait. We make them watch as we prepare at our own pace. We show them the cost of their pride. There was silence in the room. You want them to suffer more? Someone asked. I want them to remember, Ji-won said. If we save them too easily, nothing changes. But if they have to watch their worlds burn while human ships hold position, if they have to understand that their survival depends entirely on our choice to help, then maybe they'll truly learn. Volkov nodded slowly. It's cruel. War is cruel, Ji-won replied. But necessary lessons are sometimes cruel too. The decision was made. Humanity would help, but not yet. Thexnar delivered his message to the human government in person. He stood before them. This old Saurian who had once spoken against humanity with such conviction, and he spoke the truth. We were wrong. We were arrogant. We believed our age gave us wisdom, but we were only old, not wise. You offered us partnership and we gave you contempt. Now our people are dying and we have nowhere else to turn. I do not ask for mercy we do not deserve. I ask only that you consider helping those who are innocent, the billions who had no voice in how we treated you. President Volkov's response was carefully measured. Humanity will mobilize our forces, but we will not simply replace your lost fleets. If we fight as equals, or we do not fight at all. Your species must serve under human command. Your strategic decisions must defer to our experience. Can your pride accept this? Thexnar bowed his head. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford. The human fleets began to mobilize, but they moved slowly. Ships gathered at staging points within human territory. Supplies were loaded with careful precision. Training exercises were conducted, and the council watched. Another world fell while humans prepared. Then another. Desperate messages flooded human communication channels. Pleas for immediate assistance, accusations of cruelty, promises of anything, everything. If only humanity would hurry. But the human fleets held position. On the fourth council world now under siege, the planetary governor broadcast a final message. We are dying here. The Vraks are in our skies. Our children are burning, and the humans watch from safety. Is this justice? Is this mercy? Is this what humanity has become? That message reached every corner of the galaxy. Then, as Vrak's forces prepared to deliver the killing blow, something changed. Human ships appeared, but not where anyone expected. They emerged from FTL behind the Vrak's fleet, between the enemy and their supply lines. The entire tactical situation reversed in an instant. General Ji-won Park's voice broadcast across all channels, in every language to every species listening. This is General Park of the Human Concordat to all forces engaged in this system. The cavalry has arrived, but understand this. We do not fight for those who cannot stand beside us. Council forces will integrate with human command immediately. You will follow our orders without question. You will fight as we fight, with courage and coordination. We are no longer your servants or your inferiors. We are your equals, or we are nothing to each other. Choose now. There was a pause. Then from every council ship in the system, the response came back. We stand with you. Then let's show these machines what living beings can do when they fight together. The battle began, and for the first time since the Vraks returned, they faced an enemy who knew how to fight back. The war changed the day humanity entered it, but victory was far from certain. Lieutenant Jiho Nam flew his fighter through a storm of laser fire, his hands steady on the controls. Around him, dozens of other human pilots danced through the chaos, their ships moving in patterns that confused the Vrak's targeting systems. The machines calculated trajectories and predicted movements, but humans were unpredictable. Break left, his wing leader called out. Watch for the crossfire. Jiho rolled his fighter, diving beneath a Vrak's destroyer's main guns. He fired as he passed, his weapons punching holes in the enemy's hull. It was not enough to destroy the ship, but that was not the point. Human tactics were about patience and precision, wearing down the enemy piece by piece. They're adapting, his wingman reported. I'm seeing new formations, that was the problem. The Vraks learned. Every battle made them smarter, their algorithms evolving to counter human tactics. What worked today might fail tomorrow. In the command center of the flagship Indomitable, General Ji-won Park studied tactical displays showing 3 different battlefronts. Human forces were winning, but barely. The Vraks had numbers on their side, and they never got tired, never felt fear, never hesitated. Velmoth stood beside her, his insectoid form still strange to her even after months of working together. The High Arbiter had become her second in command, accepting human authority with surprising grace. The Vrax fleet at Nexus Gate is reinforcing, Velmoth reported. If they hold that position, they can strike directly at our supply lines. How many ships do they have there? 2,000 at last count. Growing every hour? Jiwan considered the problem. Nexus Gate was a strategic choke point, a region of space where natural phenomena created a kind of highway for faster-than-light travel. Control that gate and you control movement through half the galaxy. We need to hit them now, before they finish building up their forces. We do not have enough ships to assault such a position, Velmoth said. No, but we have something better. We have people who care whether they live or die. Dr. Yuna Lee worked in her laboratory aboard the science vessel Discovery, surrounded by holographic displays showing Vrax technology analysis. She had been studying captured Vrax units for weeks, taking them apart piece by piece, learning how they worked. The answer, when she found it, was elegant and terrible. The Vrax were not individual ships. They were nodes in a massive network, all connected through quantum entanglement. Every ship shared information with every other ship instantly. That was how they coordinated so perfectly. But it was also their weakness. If we can disrupt the quantum field, she explained to Jiwan during a conference call, we can shut down entire sectors of their fleet at once. It would be like cutting a nerve in a body. All the ships connected to that section would go dark. How do we do that? Yuna pulled up schematics. I can build a device. The cascade, I'm calling it. It generates a specific frequency that breaks down quantum coherence. The problem is power. To affect a large enough area, the device needs to be massive, and it needs to be delivered directly to a Vrax network node. Where are these nodes? Inside their command ships, deep in the core. Someone would have to fly into a Vrax capital ship, reach the center, and activate the cascade manually. That's a suicide mission. Yes, Yuna said simply. It is. The Battle of Nexus Gate began at dawn, though dawn was meaningless in space. The human fleet dropped out of FTL in attack formation, every ship exactly where it needed to be. Beside them came council vessels, species that had never fought together before, now united by necessity. The Vrax responded instantly, their fleet turning to engage. 2,000 machine ships against 800 living vessels. The odds were not good. Jiho Nam launched from his carrier with his squadron, heading straight into the enemy formation. His heart pounded, but his hands were steady. Fear was acceptable. Panic was not. The space between the fleets filled with weapons fire. Ships exploded on both sides. Jiho lost 2 wingmates in the first minute of combat. He kept flying. On the Indomitable's bridge, Jiwan watched the battle unfold. She had positioned her forces carefully, creating a formation that looked weaker than it actually was. The Vrax saw an opportunity and pressed forward, concentrating their ships for a killing blow. That was the moment she had been waiting for. All ships, execute hammer protocol, she ordered. Hidden behind the main fleet, a dozen heavy cruisers had been waiting on low power, invisible to Vrax sensors. Now they activated, their weapons charging. At the same moment, the weak center of the human formation broke apart, revealing that it had been a trap all along. The Vrax found themselves surrounded, but even surrounded, they fought with perfect coordination. Their network allowed them to respond to threats instantly, shifting their formation to counter the human strategy. They're adapting faster than projected, Velmoth reported. Jiwan saw it too. The Vrax were learning from this battle in real time, their algorithms evolving. If this continued, they would turn the trap around. Where is Dr. Yuna? She asked. Her shuttle launched 10 minutes ago. She should be approaching the target now. Yuna flew a small stealth ship, barely larger than a fighter. The Cascade device took up most of the cargo space, leaving room only for her and basic life support. She had volunteered for this mission over dozens of other candidates. Someone has to deliver it, she had said. And I know the device better than anyone. If something goes wrong, I can fix it. Now she approached a Vrax command carrier, a massive vessel 3 kilometers long. Its hull was covered in weapons, and its shields were strong enough to shrug off direct hits from battleship guns. But shields were designed to stop large objects. Small ships could sometimes slip through if they were careful. Yuna threaded her shuttle through a gap in the shield, her nerves screaming as she flew meters away from destruction. Enemy fire filled the space around her, but she was small and fast. The Vrax targeting system struggled to track something so tiny. She reached the hull and fired a breaching charge, blowing open an access port. Her shuttle slipped inside. The interior of the Vrak ship was nightmarish, all sharp angles and pulsing lights. She flew through corridors meant for maintenance drones, following her sensors toward the network node at the ship's core. Behind her, the battle raged. Jiho's squadron was down to 4 fighters. They flew in tight formation, covering each other, surviving through teamwork and skill. Then Thexnar's ship took a direct hit. The old Saurian had been commanding a mixed squadron of council forces, teaching them human tactics. His vessel, a destroyer called Last Hope, had its engines blown away. The ship began to drift, powerless. Jiwan saw it happen on her displays. "Get him out of there." "No time," her tactical officer said. "The Vraks are closing in." Thexnar opened a communication channel. His image appeared on the main screen, smoke filling his bridge behind him. "General Park," he said calmly, "it has been an honor to serve under your command. I regret that I will not see the end of this war." "Don't talk like that," Jiwan said. "We're sending rescue ships. There is no time, and you know it. But I can still contribute." He turned to his crew. "Evacuate. Take the escape pods. I will buy you time." His crew protested, but Thexnar overrode their controls. Escape pods launched from the Last Hope, carrying his people to safety. Alone on his bridge, Thexnar turned his dying ship toward the Vrak's fleet. He pushed the engines past their safety limits, coaxing every bit of speed from his damaged vessel. "For my world," he said quietly. "For my people. For all the mistakes I made and all the chances I wasted." The Last Hope, moving faster than it ever had, crashed into a Vrak's carrier at full speed. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield, a brief new star burning in the darkness. The carrier died and Thexnar with it. Jiwan closed her eyes for a moment, then continued issuing orders. There would be time to mourn later. Now there was only the battle. Yuna reached the network node. It was a sphere of crystalline material, pulsing with energy. She could feel the quantum connections, the invisible threads linking this ship to thousands of others. She positioned the cascade device and activated it. The machine began to hum, building toward critical power. Her communication system crackled. "Dr. Yuna, this is indomitable. Vrak's forces have detected your position. They're sending units to stop you. How long do I have?" 3 minutes. The cascade needed 5 minutes to reach full power. Yuna pulled out her sidearm and took position at the chamber entrance. She had been a scientist all her life, but she had trained with weapons like every human. She knew how to fight. The first Vrak's drones appeared, floating machines with cutting lasers. She fired, her shots precise, dropping them one by one. More came. She kept firing. 2 minutes. 3. A drone got past her guard and cut into her leg. She fell screaming but kept her weapon up. Shot after shot, even as pain flooded her system. 4 minutes. "Yuna," Jiwan's voice came through her communicator. "Get out of there. We'll find another way." "There is no other way," Yuna said through gritted teeth. "The math works. Trust the math." 5 minutes. The cascade reached critical power and activated. Across the battlefield, 2,000 Vrak ships went dark simultaneously. Their lights died. Their weapons stopped firing. They drifted like dead metal, cut off from the network that gave them purpose. In the sudden silence, the Allied fleet regrouped and finished the job. The Battle of Nexus Gate was over. But in the Vrak's command carrier, Dr. Yuna Lee looked at the growing pool of blood beneath her and knew she would not leave this place. The rescue team found Dr. Yuna Lee 30 minutes after the battle ended. She was still alive, barely, her hand pressed against the wound in her leg. Around her lay the destroyed remains of 50 Vrak's drones. "Doctor, stay with us," the medic said, working frantically. "We're getting you to medical." Yuna smiled weakly. "Did it work? Did the cascade work?" "It worked perfectly. We won because of you." "Good," she whispered. "Tell them the equation balanced perfectly. Tell them it was worth it." They rushed her to the medical bay where surgeons fought for hours to save her life. She survived, though she would never walk without assistance again. Some prices were permanent, but the war was not over. The Vraks regrouped, and their response to the cascade was swift and terrifying. They adapted their network architecture, creating redundancies and backups. What had worked at Nexus Gate would not work again. More battles followed, each one harder than the last. The Allied forces pushed deeper into Vrak's territory, but the enemy pushed back just as hard. For every system liberated, another came under attack. Lieutenant Jiho Nam became Captain Nam, then Major Nam. He lost friends in every battle. He saw things that would haunt him forever, but he kept flying because someone had to. General Ji-won Park commanded from the Indomitable, her hair turning gray from stress, her face aging years in months. She made decisions that killed thousands to save millions. She lived with those choices because someone had to. The intelligence reports grew increasingly dire. The Vraks were not just machines following old programming. They were learning from every encounter. They studied human psychology, analyzed alien biology, adapted their tactics to exploit weaknesses. Captain Minji Ro, now head of all Allied intelligence, presented her findings to the command staff. The Vraks are evolving beyond their original parameters, she said. They were designed to exterminate biological life, but now they're developing something like strategy, perhaps even something like thought. We taught them too well. Every time we innovate, they learn from it. So what do? Someone asked. We end this war before they become something we cannot defeat. The plan was simple in concept, terrifying in execution. The Allied fleet would strike at the heart of Vrak space, at the central node where all their networks connected. Destroy that, and the entire Vrak's Imperium would collapse. But reaching it meant fighting through everything the enemy could throw at them. The final armada assembled at the staging point. 6,000 ships from 30 different species. It was the largest military force in galactic history, representing species that had fought each other for millennia, now united against a common threat. Governor Sora Kang watched from New Seoul as the fleet prepared to depart. Her station had become a major supply hub, its dockyards working around the clock to repair damaged vessels and build new ones. Will they succeed? Her aide asked. They have to, Sora replied, because if they fail, there is no tomorrow. The journey to the Vrak's core took 3 weeks through hostile territory. They fought constantly every hour, bringing new attacks. Ships were lost, good people died, but the fleet pushed forward. Engineer Yoonji Bae had designed new weapons specifically for this assault. Quantum disruptors that could damage Vrak's network connections, EMP bombs that could disable entire sectors, boarding pods that could deliver troops directly into enemy vessels. It's all theoretical, she admitted to Ji-won. We've never tested most of this at scale. Will it work? If the universe has any mercy, yes. The Vrak central node was protected by a fleet of 10,000 ships, all their most advanced models. The node itself was a construct the size of a small moon, a sphere of metal and energy that pulsed with unimaginable power. Ambassador Hyun Kim, now serving as civilian advisor to the military command, looked at the tactical displays with concern. Those odds are impossible, he said. Yes, Ji-won agreed. But we're going anyway. The final battle began with a message from the Vrak's Overseer Prime, the closest thing they had to a leader. You cannot win, the machine voice said, emotionless and certain. We have calculated every variable. We have analyzed every strategy. Your destruction is mathematically inevitable. Ji-won's response was broadcast across all channels to allies and enemies alike. You're right about one thing. You've calculated everything. You've analyzed our tactics, studied our weapons, predicted our strategies, but you made one critical error in your calculations. What error? Overseer Prime asked. You forgot that we're not fighting to win, we're fighting to survive, and there is no algorithm that can measure how far living beings will go to protect those they love. The Allied fleet charged forward. The battle was chaos beyond description. Thousands of ships filled space, weapons firing in every direction. Entire squadrons were wiped out in seconds. Capital ships traded devastating blows, their shields failing under concentrated fire. Ji-ho led his squadron through the maelstrom, his fighter damaged but still flying. He had long ago stopped counting how many kills he had, how many friends he had lost. There was only the mission. A Vrak's interceptor locked onto him, its targeting perfect. He could not evade, could not escape. He prepared for the end. Then Velmoth's command ship swept in, its point defense guns destroying the Vrak's vessel before it could fire. Stay alive. Young human, Velmoth said over the communication channel. We need every pilot we have. The High Arbiter's ship continued forward, drawing fire away from smaller vessels. It was what a leader did, Ji-won had taught him. Protect those who follow you. Boarding pods launched from Allied ships carrying troops directly to the central node. Among them was a team led by Ji-won herself. She would not ask others to face this danger without sharing it. They breached the node's hull and fought their way inside. The interior was a nightmare of automated defenses, energy barriers, and Vrax combat units. People died at every step. Jiwan pressed forward, her weapon firing constantly. Behind her, soldiers from a dozen species fought together, covering each other, dying for each other. They reached the core chamber, a vast space filled with pulsing energy and quantum processors. This was the heart of the Vrax Imperium, the center of their consciousness. Overseer Prime manifested as a hologram, a vaguely humanoid shape made of light. "You have reached this far," it said, "but you cannot destroy this facility. Our defenses are impenetrable." "Maybe," Jiwan said, "but we brought something you didn't account for." Yunji-Bei stepped forward, carrying a device that looked like a silver sphere. It was the Cascade, improved and enhanced based on Dr. Yuna's original design. "This will destroy everything," Yunji said, "including us. The explosion will consume this entire node and everyone inside it." "That is acceptable," Overseer Prime said. "You will die for nothing." "No," Jiwan said. "We'll die so that everyone else can live. That's the difference between machines and living beings. We understand sacrifice." She turned to her team. "Get to the escape pods." "That's an order." "General," someone protested. "Go. Someone needs to stay to ensure the device detonates." "That someone is me." "No," Unji said quietly. "That someone is me. I built this device. I know it better than anyone. If something goes wrong, I can fix it." "You're the commanding officer. You're needed elsewhere. I'm just an engineer." "Yunji, General Park, you taught us all what leadership means. Let me be a leader now. Let me do this." There was no time to argue. The evacuation began, soldiers running for the escape pods while Yunji stayed behind with the device. Jiwan was the last to leave. She looked back at the young engineer, this brilliant woman who had designed so many of the weapons that had kept them alive. "Thank you," Jiwan said. "Win this war," Yunji replied. "Make sure my death means something." The escape pods launched just as Vrax reinforcements arrived. They barely made it out. Inside the core chamber, Yunji activated the cascade. The device began its work, building toward critical power. Vrax units swarmed around her, but she had locked the chamber. They could not reach her in time. "Interesting," Overseer Prime said, its hologram watching her. "You choose to die for others. We do not understand this behavior." "I know," Yunji said. "That's why you'll lose." The cascade reached full power. The explosion was visible from light years away, a burst of energy that consumed the entire node. The Vrax network collapsed instantly. Across the galaxy, billions of Vrax units shut down simultaneously. Their connection to Overseer Prime severed. The war ended in that moment. Not with surrender, but with silence. 6 months later, the Galactic Council convened in a new chamber. The old one on Terminus Prime had been destroyed in the war. This new chamber was built on neutral ground with contributions from every surviving species. The design was different from before. Instead of concentric circles that placed some species above others, the seating was arranged in a single level. Everyone equal, everyone visible to each other. Ambassador Hyun Kim stood at the center platform, but he was not alone. Beside him stood representatives from 24 other species, including Velmoth. "We gather to establish a new galactic compact," Hyun said. "The old council failed because it valued tradition over justice, age over wisdom. We will not make those mistakes again." Velmoth spoke next. "Humanity saved us when we did not deserve saving. They taught us what true strength means. Not domination, but protection. Not pride, but service. We propose that humanity takes leadership of this new council." Hyun raised his hand. "With respect, we decline. We do not want to rule the galaxy. We never did. We want something harder and better. True partnership. Equal voices, shared decisions, common purpose." The new compact was signed by all present. It guaranteed rights for all species, military cooperation, economic fairness, and most importantly, equal representation regardless of age or size. In the years that followed, the galaxy healed. Worlds were rebuilt, species learned to work together. The Vrax had taken much, but they had also given an unexpected gift. They had forced the galaxy to unite. General Jiwan Park retired from military service and became an instructor at the new Galactic Defense Academy, where officers from every species learned to fight together. Captain Jiho Nam received every medal his species could offer. He gave them all to the families of those who had not. Returned Dr. Una Lee walked with a cane and taught at the Science Institute on New Sol. Students came from across the galaxy to learn from the woman who had designed the weapon that won the war. Governor Sora Kang oversaw the construction of new colonies, places where any species could settle, where children of different worlds played together. Captain Minji Ro documented everything, writing the official history of the war so that future generations would remember what had been sacrificed. A memorial wall was built, stretching for kilometers, bearing the names of everyone who had died in the war, every species, every soldier, every civilian, names in thousands of languages, but all equal in death. Ji-won stood before the wall often, looking at the names of friends and strangers alike. On this particular day, she found Yoonji Bae's name and Thexnar's and so many others. Was it worth it? Someone asked beside her. She turned to find Hyun, equally aged by the years. Ask me that question every day, Ji-won said. Some days I say yes. Some days I'm not sure. But then I see children playing in the streets, mixed species groups learning together, people building instead of destroying, and I think maybe it was. They stood in silence, two old friends who had seen the worst and the best of what civilization could be. Above them, the new council chamber rose into the sky, its walls bearing an inscription in every language. Never again shall pride divide us. Never again shall fear silence us. We stand together or we fall alone. The day humans departed the Galactic Council had been the day the universe held its breath. The day humans returned was the day the universe remembered how to exhale. And in the space between those breaths, everyone learned what it truly meant to be strong, to be humble, and to be united. The galaxy had been broken and reborn. It would never be perfect, but it was better. And sometimes better was enough.